welcome for this discussion today. We would like to have a brief understanding of what's going on around the world with equality and innovation. And I think we have one of the most prominent figures in this part of the scientific as well as the equality part is Professor Sonia Contera, who has been contributing in this field quite a lot, and we are very thankful to her for that. And we also have Professor Mohan Kaul. He has been leading a very celebrating career in terms of equality, where it started all with founding of a new Indian university in management, and then went towards the United Nations and also to the Commonwealth's actions in terms of business. So I don't think any better panel is possible to have this kind of discussion. And I'm just a mere moderator here. I'm an Isaac Newton Fellow at the University of Cambridge. My name is Siddharth Ghosh. And with that, I think I'll just open the floor for just a simple discussion, and then we'll see where we lead. Just a simple question to Sonia, that what is equality to you and what is science to you? How do you bridge these two things together?
Wow, what is equality? We're all different, and equality is about balancing all the structures of power that are put there with science. So when we usually talk about equality, how we do call about equality, diversity, and inclusion. This is how we usually talk about it. And then we talk about race, gender, economic class, disability. We have these categories. I think the way we make these categories is a very interesting representation of how power is distributed in society. So when we are talking about science and equality, we're talking about science and power, and how, because science creates power, and a very transformative power. We live since the 19th century in the world created and dominated by technology. It is intertwined with all the class, gender, and the rest of the categories that the power in society makes. They're intertwined, and it's not by chance that only 7% of women are physicists. Remember that the biggest power that still shapes the world right now is the atomic bomb and the semiconductors. And this is the field with less women. And it's not by chance, because it's the one that generates more geopolitical power, and therefore is more intertwined with the identity of men. So when we talk about equality and science, one has never forget that science generates a lot of power in society, and everything we do will be colored by that. There's no way of escaping. And that's also the reason why some groups are marginalized, or in countries where science is not so important, you suddenly see more women. It's always the relation of power with the power that is generated by science and technology, and who wants to control it.
Thank you, Mohan. With that, I think that leads to my next question of you have dealt with the biggest corporates, and you have dealt with translation of science and technology into business, and a large part of the world is under Commonwealth. So what is your view in terms of equality and business, and if possible also to some extent technology related business, if you can comment on that?
Thank you. I mean, we have seen a lot of change in the last about 30, 40 years. I think it's now, if we, particularly in few countries, like if you look at India, China, or even other developing countries, of course, Western countries also, even UK now, the number of girls taking mathematics and all that are more than boys in some of the universities. So I think there is a marked shift which has happened in the last about 20, 30 years. But that doesn't mean the shift of power has happened, as Sonia said. Because it will take time for people to reach those levels where they can influence the power. So I must say, we are in the right direction in terms of getting the mix of students in the universities or in technical colleges in terms of mix of men and women, but it will take time. But I think definitely there's a need for positive action in involving more women, particularly in technology industry, and particularly making women graduates, whatever, more entrepreneurs in the technology area. So we think, as Sonia said, we feel that if women come more in technology area or innovations, they will probably use a technology for better purposes. They will have a much better cost benefit or impact or choice than men were there. So I feel getting more women into technology entrepreneurship should be one of our main areas of focus.
So I can answer to that if you want more women entrepreneurs, the money has to become available for women. And it is known that we are very few women entrepreneurs. There are many barriers to us, starting from the fact that it's not seen feminine to be independent and to start your own company. And that's not just a matter of, it basically means that it's very difficult to find a partner, to make a family. We still have to make a choice. And it's not just a choice of nursery. It's a choice that it's very hard for women to find partners that are supportive or to find families that are supportive of the activity. And those that do, which are a minority, usually find it very hard to get money. So venture capital, for example, is calculated that less than 1% of all the money given to make companies in the world is actually given to women entrepreneurs. So there's a big problem, and there are many reasons for that. The fact that those VCs are usually men sitting on boards that are not used to see women having leadership roles in their environment, and they find it very hard to match an engineer with a woman face, especially if it doesn't come from middle class or for the type of women they are used to see. We have the opposite case, for example, with Theranos, who was a very young, upper middle class girl from Harvard who didn't know very much about the science she was saying, and yet she was able to raise millions in the Silicon Valley. And you can see it's not just gender. There's this intersection between, I asked many men in the Silicon Valley why you think they were funding her homes and not other women, which are more experienced. Most big companies, for example, in biotech, are Moderna and BioNTech, for example, they're the big successful companies of the pandemic. They're run, and also Citic, the company of the Oxford vaccine, are run very much programs by women and science made by women, but they're not young and 20 years old. They're 50, 55-year-old, very experienced with a long experience, but yet the money, the funders went to a very young, very blonde, very American woman. So there are many stereotypes that have to be broken. It's not just a stereotype of gender. So it's a very complex issue, like everything we do in society. So I asked many men in the Silicon Valley, why you think they gave her the money? And they say, because she looked like, many said, because she looked like the daughter we would like to have. So it's a very, very complex issue, but certainly I think what we can do is to talk about it and to highlight it and to do a common reflection, and also to highlight the cases where women entrepreneurs are very successful. I would, for example, put BioNTech. This couple, the husband, the wife, working together all their life, both very good at business, both very good at science, experience, and they managed to make one of the most successful companies in the world right now. So highlight is that they're both the children of immigrants in Germany, which is not an easy place to integrate as a Turkish immigrant. So I think highlighting these cases and studying these cases is very important to have objective measures. And the people of the VCs should learn them, that these are the women that are going to make you money, not the ones that you think they are. So breaking the stereotypes by giving good examples, I think, is very important.
Thank you, Sonia. I think you just simply answered my question, which I was about to ask. Uh, Fantastic. So I have another question on that regard. Can you comment a bit about, not in business, but in science, women's contribution, except yours is amazing, of course, but you have been leading in very important biophysics work as well as computing work in the Oxford physics. But is there any other exemplary names which is always there in your mind?
I don't have really any female role model. I'm very much in a way self-made. I have anti-role models, the women and the men I don't want to be. And my best role model actually have been my men also. My PhD supervisor in Japan was great. It was a man in a country where there was no women, absolutely. In my whole building where during my PhD, there was no, we were 2-3 women. That we were not secretaries or cleaners. And yet he supported me from day one. He supported his daughters. He has a daughter who is now making the vaccine in Yale, Akiko Iwasaki. She's my age. She's making the nasal vaccine, one of the best immunologists of the US. And I think that example was great. You can be a man grown up in a very sexist, unequal society, and yet understand that the world needs diversity, whatever it comes from. And he's always been my inspiration. I was in Japan in a very hostile environment as a woman foreigner, and yet I had a great example next to me. I think that's the biggest influence I ever had. Yeah.
Thank you, Sonia. Mohan, do you have any particular name or anybody whom you want to mention? I would not like to narrow the question by mentioning any woman, but as Sonia has already taught us, do you have any particular exemplary cases or name which you want to?
No, I mean, I don't know if I remember the name correctly, but I mean, as Sonia has said, there are a number of women and couples actually, both in India and abroad, as you said, who have worked together in the pharmaceutical areas and done wonders in vaccines or other. But it looks like this is particular area where you can find more couples working together. I don't see in any other areas.
No, you are a bit mistaken. In fact, most women in physics are married to other physicists. I'm not, and I understand. I'm not married to a scientist, and I think that's the women that make it tend to have a supported husband because they work as a team, and then attacking her means attacking the husband. It's also protecting, and they can support each other when they have kids. Is the women that don't have this supported husband like I do, who like I don't, it becomes, we are very few of us. We don't manage to survive, which I'm not saying you should marry an academic. I certainly wouldn't. But yeah, it's a very, very complex issue. Yeah.
You are right. The first women that we used to think was Marie Curie, and it was the couple. And so therefore, in all the examples that you then, it has been like the couples who have
a supportive husband. A supportive husband is, because having a supportive husband means you have a man in the field that is defending you as well. Yeah. And your ideas are taken seriously in a way that a woman by herself aren't. And this is something I suffer. So I can understand that quite well. Yeah, it's a very complex issue.
Sorry, Sonia, you have to leave. So I was wondering that
I still have
5 minutes more? 5 minutes more?
No, I'm leaving in 20 minutes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I think shall we move to a slightly more serious discussion, which is at the moment very relevant. It's also inequality in terms of power and the position of a country. I'm in a very personal situation. I wrote a very nice paper with Ukrainian scientists, Russian scientists, Dutch, German, and as well as I was the first author as an Indian. the carbon nanodots, which was created in Paladin Institute of Chemistry in Ukraine, in Kyiv, it's in a very bad shape. So what is how does science and technology gets affected by inequality, unequal power distribution? Can we comment on that a little bit?
Shall I go or you go, Mohan?
No, you go.
Well, this is again a very complex issue, because most of the establishment of science in the world happened during the 19th century, early 20th century, during the expansion of European colonialism, and then was reinforced after the Second World War with the hegemony of the United States. So obviously, and of course the Cold War, everything we develop is in a complex dialogue between geopolitics and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. We're seeing it right now again. We can take one example, and maybe it's easier to understand. I love physics of semiconductors because you can really see how geopolitics plays a role. So the first computer was built during the Manhattan Project. Johnny von Neumann talking to Turing, they were trying to prove the ideas of Gödel. It was a very esoteric purpose. But it was Edward Teller making the hydrogen bomb who got the funding to actually build the first computer. So here we see how things go. And then after the bombs were dropped on Japan, and the whole Asia and the whole world realized how important it was to get your physics quickly ready and get your bomb if you didn't want to get your second. And then is when, you know, China, India, everybody was interested in learning physics. Japan manipulates, I think, very well the whole situation, sees the opportunity as an occupied power, just because they already had very good physicists before the war. And they say, we're going to go for semiconductors. So Esaki gets the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1953-54 for the semiconductor diet, something that never gets told in history of computing. The Japanese are forgotten, yet all our devices are made in Taiwan and Japan. So Japan takes the opportunity to build the computers because they realize this is their survival. This is how they will build a geopolitical survival. In the 1980s, the Americans get worried. They started a trade war because Japan has started to control all the machine making. And then suddenly that power goes quietly to South Korea and Taiwan. And now we have the Taiwan Semiconductor Company and Samsung are the only ones that can build semiconductors at 3 nanometers. And they're pushed by geopolitics for survival. Is the only way they managed to create the democracies, by balancing the power with the United States. We give you what you want, I give you what you want, and we keep you in your games with China. They wouldn't survive without being China. And now we have the next stage where China decides they don't want to be part of this anymore. And now again, which might be good for computing. I just wrote an article that will come out next week in El País, a Spanish newspaper, that I think computing has been stuck now. You know, you cannot make the transistor smaller than 2 nanometers. They spend way too much energy. A single training of a machine learning algorithm costs about $4 million. So we need new computers. We need maybe more analog biomorphic, more biological computers. And I guess this will come out of the new war, of the new Cold War. So I think science is always in a dialogue with geopolitics, and the countries that understand it do well. and they have the right situation. I don't think it's totally under your control. Certainly as a Spanish person, I see very much what it means to be a weaker member of the European Union. We're all abroad. All the scientists and technologies are in Germany or France or the UK. So so science and geopolitics are totally intertwined. Maybe Mohan can talk more about other countries in Asia or.
One good thing is, I feel that in the future in science, wherever it is, you see more women than more proportion of women in semiconductors, in NASA, in India, a number of proportion that now you see women as much better. And I feel because of that, the possibility of of decision making towards positive rather than negative kind of applications is more likely to happen. And I think because of that, also the science, I think the shift from apart from this is also to the to going to the new going to the moon or going to Jupiter, or I think the whole idea of space will take a much greater part in the science and technology than in the past, because I think we're going that way, but the semiconductor story is not going to end yet, because I think that is probably going to be the big bubble now, because of whatever China, USA, and all that. You know, all this. What is probably sad, I don't know, or I am too pessimistic, is the role of Europe. It seems to be it's kind of reducing over time, even if, so may it be Germany, UK, or any other, France or Spain. The overall in the Europe is not playing that role intellectually as well as economically, and that's sad, because if that reduces, then you have a bipolar kind of I think from US at one end and the China on the other side, whatever, and so it's likely to be a dangerous, explosive situation, or we don't know. So, but the role of Europe, I personally feel, if we could get more women into this science thing, I mean, we will have a much better possibility of peace or positive discrimination or better products. That is evident now. More and more women join the science and technology. I think that would play a positive role in any case.
I had a separate follow-up question, but Sonia, would you like to comment anything on that? Because
I mean, I agree that not only women, having more diverse, including more disabled people, that is something that Sid would maybe wanted to discover. Create more diverse teams. It's not just the applications you make. The ideas change. We are very used to, reality is not algorithmic. Reality is not logical. Reality is very complex, and we only crack new ideas when people that are misfits, people that don't fit into the system, bring the new ideas into the system. And it's clear that we got stuck. We are moving in energy, in semiconductors and all that. We're reaching the end of a lot of things. It's unclear, for example, that all these renewable technologies are really that renewable. They're also part of all this big geopolitical change. There's lithium also. You need to dig out the lithium. All the rare earths are controlled by China. All the metals are in Africa or in India or in Russia or in the occupied areas of Ukraine is maybe the richest part with lithium in the world.
Yeah.
So things are very complicated, and I think the only way forward is to create diverse teams that looks for solutions. As Mohan says, Europe should play an important role balancing the powers. But it's unclear. We have no vision. We can see the lack of leadership of countries with Germany, which are very stuck in their energetic policies. They haven't been very honest to their populations and to the rest of the world. So we are in deep trouble right now. And I guess, Mohan is right. We just need diverse teams and multidisciplinary teams with a lot of people from many places. Honesty. I also think honesty is a very important thing that we don't do anymore. We do a lot of politics. Nobody actually digs out the facts. We are used to just compete to get our contract, presenting good stories, but not telling the truth. And I think this is a moment of looking back at the truths, even if we don't like them. Even if lithium is not as good, maybe we should say it. Or maybe if nuclear is better than we thought, maybe we should also say it. I think there's a time now for reflecting on truth and digging out real facts. And for that, again, you need diverse teams. Because as soon as you have men all looking the same, the truth they see is very narrow. And the truth is very complex and has many aspects and many hidden aspects. And then you need these disabled people, these women from not very affluent backgrounds, who are going to tell you where the truths are. But not the leaders that all have been going to the same business schools, they all have the same education. They will see a very narrow band of the truth. And I think this is also the reality more than the truth, that this is what I think is an important fact. We need to reflect on reality.
Can I propose
Yes.
that on that note, on the,
Sure.
I mean, I don't know what to do, but I was saying, can we plan a kind of a global conference, which we can use, Sonia, I mean, I think either in Oxford or Cambridge or wherever, but it's a global conference. We'll see how we will get it paid. But first, the whole idea of getting a new or a diversity in thought, in strategy, in looking at the future, you gave various. We're looking for solutions through diversity in ideas or in so. Is it possible to organize something which, with your kind of chairmanship? I mean, I mean, we will market it. We'll try to get people from developed and developing countries and from science and non-science people. But we play. Why I'm saying that women should play a crucial role in that thinking of this, in kind of. In saying how we can take a leadership in thinking in this particular. That doesn't mean it has to be only women, but I'm just saying overall.
No, women are very important because they deal with children, they deal with the future.
Yeah,
they deal with the future. And they deal with a complex reality. Reality has this analog part and this digital part. And we are very good at the digital part at university because we create metrics, things we can measure. But we all know that the really complex problems of the world are not digital, they are analog. You need this global understanding. The global understanding, you need to bring up a child, right?
Yeah.
And this is what is lacking from our educational systems, and we are too rational. And reality is not rational. We have to be rational, but there are many aspects. And I think it's historical. It also comes from the history of colonization, of domination, of we have to decolonize ourselves. As much as as everything else is deconstructing what brought us here, I guess, is what we need to do. Yeah.
I think that this leads to ask me a question here, is that I think it's absolutely necessary to have diversity in terms of everything, whether it's gender, nationality,
everything.
So what is the role of a university as well as an organization like the international body like United Nations or Commonwealth, which diplomatic body? Can these organizations play an important role to have free movement of global citizens who are innovators, who are scientists? Is there anything that can come out of this global conference that Mohan is proposing? Having these two important players, key players, university and this international body who are very neutral. Is there any possibility we can see that a governance can come out of from this kind of consortium?
International organizations cannot play a role because they are all administered by the representatives of the governments. But I was thinking a new idea, that is the new like G20 has come or something like that. This is a completely different kind of thing which has come, but it has both developing and developed countries. It has a middle income group and all that. I was wondering, I'm not, but I'm just saying there is a possibility of creating a kind of a new order where which is based on this new theme that there is a need for diversity in equality. And not only, but it's the future. You're determining the future of the world or the future of how do we want to live in the future. Are we going to be enemies? So I personally feel there's a great idea of, and this should come from intellectuals or scientists or people like you guys in terms of giving of you becoming all this you guys stay in universities and all that. You are at a different level. You're not meeting the common people. So if we can get the intellectual course and the common people from the together, maybe we'll get a solution.
I disagree a bit that universities don't meet the common people. Some people at universities don't meet the common people. Actually, elite universities where we are one thing, but most universities are not elite universities, and actually they do run a lot of programs with the communities, and even Oxford and Cambridge, many of us are very engaged with our communities and trying to understand more what we're doing in terms of embedding more our activities. But universities have always placed a role in equality and diversity. But this brings another very complicated topic, which is for another discussion, which is this meritocracy business. We've created a world in which we have some kind of meritocracy that measures very specific things. First of all, it's not such, because you can game it. You can game it with the education you give your children, and we don't really live in a meritocratic society. But even the parts that are more meritocratic, I think they're not fit for purpose anymore. The kind of education we have, we should value more working in groups than individuals. I think maybe in a way is rethinking what is an individual, something deeper. And if is it really the individual, the relation of the individual with the community, rethinking that meritocracy. Is it really a good idea to choose the very best? What does that mean when we actually want to work in groups that are diverse? How do we choose the best, and what is the meaning of the best? I think it's very cultural. It's very, you both come from Asian countries where the role of I'm from Spain, from rural communities in Spain, and certainly what is an individual is very different to what is an individual in physics. The genius, is it really fit for purpose anymore? And I think this is the core of what is the role of the individual and the so-called excellence. I would put it very much into question. And of course, that is the more revolutionary thing of what we can do. But I think we are all craving that. We're not happy lives because we're not happy as the kind of individuality that has been created for us, in which we don't fit. So meritocracy, rethinking meritocracy is a big undertaking, but I think it's an important thing.
And that leads to my next, or possibly the last question.
Yes, because I have to go.
Yes. The role of the universities, I think, specifically some of the elite universities, have been very important in inequality. Oxford has.
They built it. They built it.
Very recent example, Malala is in Oxford. So, we have seen that has happened. University of Cambridge has protected, given that kind of important strength of doing whatever you want to do. In the Cambridge, we have this kind of activities as well. So what do you think about extending it for even people who are not able to get that? You talked about meritocracy, but what would be the future of university, or maybe not a university, something else? Is there a possibility we can come to a common platform where open innovation is available for everybody? The term misfit is not there anymore. Can we think about anything of that common platform where we can bring everybody together?
I think it's going to be very difficult if the current structures are continue to be, because still to get a job you need your degree. I think innovation can break that. The fact that there is an alternative route to making innovation, which is like if someone has the money and you have a good idea, they can give it to you regardless of where you come from. But we know in practice this really doesn't happen. So it's going to be a long road to improve this. Certainly the internet opens a lot of possibilities, and we have seen during the pandemic of education that were not there before. I certainly educate myself online. I learn new topics. I don't go to conferences so much anymore. I just find information online, and I think we all do that. So that will eventually change things. But as long as who holds the money are the same people, the people that have to fund that innovation are the ones that have to take the risk, and it's unclear if they're going to do it.
And Mohan, can you comment on that?
See, I personally feel because of the whatever internet and technology and all that, and use of that, you can see it during pandemic, during COVID, that number of children have really learned different things at different pace. So there is definitely a possibility that if you are interested in something, say maths or whatever, now the technology as well as what is available gives you that, empowers you to go, if you want to go individually. I mean, if you want to spend time on more, it is possible for you to do it in addition to what you are doing in school or in college and all. So I think this, whatever you call it, open learning, is going to be definitely in the future. I mean, I'm seeing the education even in next 10 years, use education, at least the school education, while the children will probably go up the ladder in different paces, in different specialties, and they might finish, class 10 when they are 10 years old, or another person might do that. So there might, and the worst thing is it might build more new inequalities, because I think we'll get new guys who will. So every thing what we do, the technology innovations creates inequality of some kind. But I think open learning, in the sense that allowing people to go out of the mainstream education and in and out is a possibility, is a possibility now, and it might be widely accepted because there is money in the system. I mean, I know that, and because people are willing to become more innovative, because there are more people. When Bill Clinton, the Microsoft was there was only one guy there. I mean, now there are 10s and 20s, 30s people doing the same thing as Bill Gates would have done at that time, or whatever way. So I think the numbers are going to be much different, but and I feel open learning we have to listen. But those people who want to be innovators and who want to not go necessarily on a university path, but they will take a risk and create products, create vaccines, But the problem with it, suppose tomorrow a person who has not gone to the Oxford University and creates a vaccine, he or she will have so much time to convince others that it is a real innovation, because people still go by which university you come. They say, no, I have no university.
It's not just that.
This is what I'm doing. Yeah? Sorry.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
not. It's you don't even get the opportunity to do
Yeah,
that research.
yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I
but
think,
there is, one can do it. One can create those
Yeah,
new
one has to
networks.
create those opportunities.
Yeah.
That's right.
sorry, we have to stop, unfortunately. But I think this kind of words coming from Mohan is very important, because as Mohan speaks to one of the mega companies and large corporates, uh, I think it's very reassuring that people like him can convince them that they should pour philanthropic funds in this kind of unconventional innovations, open learning, so that people can get the opportunity to even think about um, creating new things ahead to save the humanities. I think with that, I think I'm very thankful to both of you, giving your very important time for this discussion. Sonia has been possibly very busy with teaching in Oxford, and Mohan Kaul has been very busy with a lot of meetings. But despite that, I think this was a very important discussion. I think thank you, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.